Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Everyone.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from the skies to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Good morning again, and happy Vijayadashami tomorrow. When we were in Delhi years ago, we of course celebrated this tomorrow as Dussehra or Dussehra. And then of course coming down to Chennai, we're learning the other names of all the holidays that we grew up with in Delhi. And so realizing that Dussehra could also be Dasara, and it's the end of Navaratri. And so then when I was sending out greetings, I thought, well, Navaratri, it's kind of like, it's not Navaratri, it's Navaratri down here, because 9 nights, and so Dussehra is kind of like, the 10th night, like Dasaratri. So I said to everyone, happy Dasaratha, which is of course the name of Rama's father. And I thought, oh, how about that? What a coincidence. And then someone had the kindness of texting me back saying, it's either happy Dasaratha or happy Dasara. Either one is fine, but only one is actually correct. So I thought, Vijaya Namami, Vijaya Dasami, so yes. It's going to take a little while just to get them all straight. All different names.
Aditya, right? Aditya?
Or,
Say it again. I got it wrong.
Ayudha.
Ayudha means
Ayudha is a tool.
Yes, so you're blessing all of the mechanical things, and
Yes.
so may all your computers work, and
Cars were.
all the cars get reset, and everything, and all the ACs.
several years ago in India, in Gurgaon, there were some children who were putting on a dance. And if you've read the email that I sent out, then Pretend that you haven't. And because it tells this story. So they were choreographing a dance to depicting the life of Rama and Sita according to a song written by Swamiji called Rama and Sita. And we'll actually play that song for you after this. And they wanted to involve more children in it, so they thought, let's show the battle between Rama and Ravana. And of course, you can't have Rama and Sita without Hanuman, especially this part of the story where Ravana is defeated. Sita is found and Ravana is defeated. So they thought, let's have this in the dance. But there was a problem that the song doesn't make any reference to Hanuman and doesn't actually tell of the battle, doesn't describe the battle. And one of the reasons is that this song, Rama and Sita, Swamiji wrote many, many years ago in America, wanting to bring to America the story of the Ramayana. And if you think about it, how could you put the Ramayana to music in English in a song that's about, 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long? I mean, it's just impossible. And yet, if you think of the great need to tell the story of Rama and Sita to a whole collection of people who've never heard it before, have never even heard the names before. So anyway, think of that when you hear this song, and you'll see the words there below. So in that moment, the children thought, well, let's just ask Swamiji if he can maybe not write another part of the song, but maybe write some words that we can read about Hanuman and describing this battle, just so we can have it in the middle of the dance. And so Swamiji wrote these following words on Hanuman. This is not on your sheet. Hanuman the humble, emboldened and powerful by faith in Rama, confronts the demon Ravana fearlessly, great courage in his heart. Before this simple monkey contemned, King Ravana laughs to scorn the little foe. He little realizes, but his day has come. Defeat stands masked before him, and destruction, so long deferred, soon sweeps like a flood to burst upon his land. And then after this, there was a glorious battle scene, as only children can do. And then the song picks up where it left off. There's actually a video of this dance. It took place in 2007. Swamiji was there. And in the newsletter, you'll see a link to the video in case you're interested in actually seeing what they ended up doing. But the figure of Anjaneya is so dear to all of us. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who, upon meeting Anjaneya, Hanuman, for the first time, doesn't feel some warmth, and that just increases the more stories you read about him. And it's said, I assume it's true, that there are more temples to Anjaneya than anyone else in India. And that's just so beautiful, and we have to understand what more we can draw from it. Swamiji was invited to inaugurate a series of classes at the Chinmaya mission in Delhi that were being held for their people, by their people, but they invited him to just basically give the opening blessing. And he gave a very short talk on Anjaneya, but the first thing he said was, we must always, when approaching even the story of Hanuman, ask ourselves not, well, what have other people said? But what meaning can I draw from it personally, that is personally relevant to me? And in that way, it's actually very helpful to not know too much. Because when we've read so much, when we know too much, it's almost like we can't have a thought, one thought, without having 4 footnotes appended at the bottom. And you find this way of speaking very commonly especially in academic circles. In fact, there's these psychologists wanted to test this theory, so they found some researchers in a particular field, suppose it's geology. These psychologists, and with the help of a geologist, wrote a paper summarizing some particular finding in geology, but wrote it in very simple, plain language, just directly, not overly complicated or anything. And the professors had that to read, and then this same researcher wrote the same exact facts, but with much more erudite language and complex terminology and big fancy words that you would find on the SAT or the GRE exams. And same facts. And the professors preferred the second article. Said the first article was not worth reading, but the second article was well researched, clear, citations, excellent and innovative work. It's the same facts. Sometimes our mind can have a tendency to prefer the complex. And when I was studying mathematics and computer science, I felt rather pleased that, yes, well, after all, and all these complicated things. And then I read in the autobiography of a yogi, where Sri Yukteswar says of such pleasure, he says, the ego is gratified that it can grasp such complexity. And I thought, it's true. It's just sort of like, I can say this 10-syllable word correctly. I mean, does it mean I know what that word means? Does it mean I've experienced it? Have I made it my own? And even if so, isn't it just perhaps a distraction from the truth? It's the truth that matters. And so, in any case, back to Swami approaching the story of Hanuman, said, what meaning can I have for it? Can it have for me personally? And so he said a few things. The first thing that I wanted to mention is, of course, Anjaneya, I believe, means the son of Anjana, right? It's Hanuman's mother, Anjana. And even she has this wonderful story that's so relevant. She was cursed to live on earth. I mean, that just tells you what it is right now. I curse you, go to earth. Just like, wow, that's pretty tough. If that's how the gods curse each other, is by sending them to earth, then it tells us, what kind of situation we're in. Not that we're cursed, but that we're in a pretty tough place. I mean, my gosh. And she's not the only one. Of course, Bhishma and so many others, when all of his brothers, they were all cursed to go to earth. They were fortunately drowned right away so they could then go back to heaven and be done. He had to stay. But that tells us God's compassion. Divine Mother knows this is kind of a messy place. And even Master said, God knows that He has done wrong by us in having us on earth, and He's very sorry for what He did. And Master even said, why do you put them all on earth? Master even added, Lord, you are always happy. You are never in suffering. You have this experiment of Maya in suffering, but you don't have to experience it. Why do you try it on us? And he said, God laughed. He liked it. But he said, ultimately, I'm drawing them all back to me. So, what can we say? We can only complain about the time that it takes. And that time is really up to us. The more we invest in getting free, the freer we become. And so, even Anjana, cursed to be on earth, gave birth to Hanuman. And what a great gift to all of us is that life, that story, that example. Similarly, though perhaps cursed by our own karma to be here, it is nevertheless a great blessing. Why? Because, remember the story of the saint who was a very saintly person, and a man knocked on his door and came in, and he said, I'm hungry. And so the saint had just finished making his own meal, and he said, please, have this. And the man said, what's that? You expect me to eat that slop? And he threw it on the ground. And so the saint said, "Oh, I'm sorry, well, I'll make you something else." And so he made some other food out of some other thing, and then he gave it to the saint and this other guest. And the guest said, "I'm not going to eat this," and threw that one away. And the saint said, "Never mind, I'll try something else." And then he came up with one more thing, and again the man just threw it. And the saint said, "I'm sorry, I'll try again." And the man then revealed himself to be an angel and said, "Wow, I was testing you to see how calm you could be." I mean, isn't that amazing? It's not like he threw swords at him. He just took his food and threw it on the ground. I mean, that also tells us that if that's going to test a saint, I mean, that's the kind of thing that tests us. Somebody takes our chocolate and throws it, and we get all upset. Well, it's there. It's like, that's a test worthy of a saint. Someone taking our food, for example, that we just made and throwing it on the ground 3 times. So, this angel said, "I'm here to tell you that because of the depth of your self-realization and the purity of your heart, you have the blessing of going to heaven while remaining in the physical body." Now, meaning, in other words, you stay conscious through the transition from life to death. You don't literally go to heaven in the physical body, because the heaven is basically the astral world. You go in the astral body. But it means your consciousness is uninterrupted in this transition. And so the saint said, "Well, thank you, and that's a great blessing. But I have to ask you, what are the advantages of going to heaven?" And the angel said, "Well, well, you're kind of an unusual fellow, aren't you? Nobody ever asks that. But since you've asked, I have to tell you that you will be in perennial springtime. You can change the weather at any time, just at your mere wish. Even if you want it to snow, it will fall, but it will not be cold. You will get to enjoy anything you want. You can bring into manifestation just by thinking it. You'll mix with other saints, and it's really just a nice time." And so the saint said, "Well, I have learned in this world of duality that everything has its opposite. So, can you tell me, are there any disadvantages to heaven?" And the angel said, "When they made you, they broke the mold, didn't they? No one's ever asked the disadvantages of heaven." But again, since you've asked me, I have to confess that the disadvantage of heaven is that you can't grow spiritually there. You can't make progress. So you will be in heaven as long as your store of good karma exists. But once it gets depleted, you'll start to feel longing for the things of earth. And your material desires will come and take you, and you'll be reborn on earth again. And so the saint said, "That's what happens after heaven? I mean, isn't there anything better?" And the angel said, "Well, actually, yes, there is something beyond even heaven. There's sort of the lightless light, the darkless dark, the Lord, the realm of the Lord. That's beyond something that we angels can perceive even. But if you want that, you have to remain here on earth to work out the rest of your karma." And the saint said, "Well, I mean, thank you very much, but the disadvantages of heaven that you've outlined are so colossal. Who in their right mind would ever want to go to heaven? I'm happy to remain here." And he remained there. And that is true. Self-realization requires working it out on the physical plane, not in every single case. There are some special exceptions where you can live in other spheres and work out your karma there. But for most of us, this is the place we do it. One reason why the astral world is too pleasant. There's no motivation to work anything out. So the next time something unpleasant arrives, remember, it's God inviting us to get free. Swamiji was once at the lake shrine helping Master and others clean it up. And it was so beautiful. They were going to have the grand opening, the dedication. This was in 1950. But these gnats came and were flying in everybody's eyes and nose and ears. And they were this, annoyance in the middle of all this paradise. And Swamiji asked Master, why in this beautiful scene do we have to have these gnats, these little bugs? And Master said, it's God's way of reminding us this world is not our home. So every time there's a traffic jam, remember, and you're making good time, you're going to be early, and then Adiyar Bridge, finished. Just remember, this world is not our home. God is saying, wake up, don't get too comfortable. And we say, yes, right, I don't want to get too comfortable because I want to keep working. Because we have to do the work anyway. If not now, later. So why not now? To become free. In fact, Edgar Cayce, those of you who may know him, he was a mystic and he had the ability to read people's past lives and so on. There's lots of stories about him. He would take people and talk to them in sort of a trance mode about their lives. I think he hypnotized people also, which is dubious, but in any case, never mind. Asked them he regressed them past their birth. Asked them, what were you thinking before you were born? And all of them said that they knew that this time on earth would be a very turbulent, difficult time. And this, I think Cayce lived in the 20s, 30s, 40s, I'm not sure exactly, but certainly around the wars. They all said this would be a time of great upheaval and danger, and not one of them complained about it. Or said, and I'm worried. They all said, but we can make great spiritual progress during times like these. Master said the same thing. This transition between yugas, Kali Yuga to Dwapara Yuga, which we're in. And I'll just leave a whole footnote as to how the basis for saying that. This time between yugas, you can make great spiritual progress. And Swamiji added that if we ever, in seeing another spiritual aspirant or yogi struggling with the materialistic temptations that are all around us, and he says, and shame on us if we judge anyone, but he said, let us remember that the spiritual gains far outweigh any of the materialistic temptations. So, having said all that, that is the great blessing that we have of being born on earth, more than a curse, though sometimes you wonder. And similarly, Anjana, she was cursed, but she gave birth to Anjaneya. Now, the beautiful thing Swamiji points out about Anjaneya is that he, through devotion to Rama, through devotion to God, through devotion to the Guru, he was able to do many things greater than even Rama did. It wasn't that he was greater than Rama, but with Rama's power, he could do tremendous things. And it's actually said, even in the Bible, that Jesus said, all those things, he said to his disciples, all those things that I do, you will do, and greater things. And you think, well, I mean, you can't do something greater than the Guru. You can't be greater than the Guru. And he wasn't saying you'll be greater than the Guru. Even when you become one with God and you are equal with the Guru, still, Master said you never forget that it was through that hand that you became free. And you always keep that respect. But still, using God's power, you can accomplish anything. And you can even do more outwardly than even the Guru did. It's not a contest, it's the Guru's power only that's doing it, so in any case, he wins the contest. In fact, Yoganandaji's most advanced disciple, Rajarshi Janakananda, was with him. He was a wealthy businessman, a millionaire, in the days when that was the biggest, heir you could be. Now a millionaire is nothing, but then it was a big deal then. And Master said to him, never forget where your power comes from. And Rajarshi said, I won't, sir. It comes from you. I know it all comes from you. And so Hanuman could do anything because of his faith in the Guru's power and asking the Guru to do it through him. And so we have to do that all the time when faced with a challenge. Just say, okay, I can't do it, but you can do anything. Do this through me. give me an idea of what to say, of what to do, of how to help this person, what to do in this situation. I'm lost. What do you think? Sometimes we have to be lost in order to finally stop thinking and go, whoops, how did I get here? What am I supposed to go next? And then we listen, and then we suddenly hear, well, in fact, this is what you should do. So, it's, in fact, Master said, it's God that tempts us. But then it's also God that saves us. God isn't tempting us to get us in trouble. He's testing us. Not because He's not sure of our heart. He knows everything. But He wants us to become sure. He wants us to become strong. When we pass certain tests, we gain great confidence. Hopefully not overconfidence in the ego. You see how spiritual I am? I faced that test, no problem. I'm very humble too. Ego is very clever. Anytime there's a blessing, it says, yes, my blessing, which I am the source of. And then we just get caught again and again. If that happens, don't feel badly. Just say, ha ha ha, good joke is on me. That's actually the last test before enlightenment. There's two kinds of samadhis. Again, oneness, final merging. Sabhikalpa and nirvikalpa. Sabhikalpa is not final. From sabhikalpa samadhi, the first samadhi, you can still fall. Why? Because in merging with God, you come out and say, I'm one with God now. I always knew it. Hi, you don't have to pray anymore. You can just ask me, I'm God. It's not I am one, it's I am one with God. Whereas in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you come out with the realization, I am one with God. I am just a wave of the sea. And then you can move around and act and still have that connection. That's what the Masters have. That's what we can have. Master said, if you're attracted to these teachings, if you practice them, strive to become at least a Jivan Mukta in this lifetime, which means Nirvikalpa Samadhi. At the same time, if just before attaining Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the saints are in Sabhikalpa Samadhi and they fall because of this temptation of the ego. If they fall, if they're tested, we should look kindly when we are tested. In other words, if we get egotistical and then, oh, I can't believe I was so egotistical. Don't be egotistical. That's the ego being pleased that we're displeased. It's just too much emphasis on us. Even the saints go through this test. It's natural. It's common. Just let it go and say, God, never mind all the rest of this stuff. So, in this, on this path to liberation, we just allow the Masters, we allow God to flow through us and say, you are the doer. You guide me. I want to spend more time with you. I want to be free. And so, with Hanuman too, Hanuman never said, look at all the wonderful big things that I did. He was only thinking of Rama. That's why there's that beautiful portrayal of Hanuman opening his chest and revealing Rama on his heart. We should feel the same way in maybe less gruesome manner about ourselves. Just that when God opens, He sees inside His own reflection. The Guru sees the Guru. If you have a Guru, the Guru is just right there in our hearts. We should hold Him there. And we can. He's already there anyway. Master said God is ticking in your heart. And so, similarly, I mentioned God tempts us, but then God also saves us. And so it's important to remember in any test, there's always a solution. Every question has an answer. How do we know? Because of duality. If there's this, there must be this to balance it. Every electron has another electron. I mean, come on. So everything is balanced. Every tension is balanced by its relaxation. And so, similarly, God tests us, but then also saves us. So when the test comes, say, okay, I see what's coming from this hand. Where's the other hand? Where's the saving? I want that saving now. Safety. So, in the story of Jesus and Saint Teresa of Avila, she was a great saint in the 1500s in Spain. She was a nun And this was a strange time in the monastic history of Christianity, where the monks and nuns were no longer cloistered, meaning hidden away. They were in their own little place. But they were able to mix freely with visitors who would come to basically the lobby or the parlor and talk to them. And so part of it is that, if you let the wealthy people talk to the nuns and the monks, then you get more donations. So that was part of what was happening then. That's the way Maya was creeping in. And so Teresa had many experiences of Christ, and she would always say, though, at the end of one of these interviews, she said, "I'm sorry I have to leave you now, sir. I have a guest waiting in my cell." And she was referring to Jesus, her guru, who would be there in form, or who would be there in vision, or she would always have his thought, the thought of him close with her, and she would have conversations with him and experiences of him. It wasn't just imaginary, though it's good to imagine that we're in conversation with Anjaneya, with the Guru and so on, even if we're not in that moment. But then a particular guest came. A very handsome, wealthy young man, very smart, very dignified, very virtuous. And Teresa became intrigued by this man. And she started to become drawn to him. And in fact, so the story goes, he was planning to marry her and take her away. Not necessarily through conscious evil intent or anything, but just that, it's a natural way anyway, it's natural. Natural, not necessarily meaning the best thing, but common. And so she found herself more and more drawn to this, and she either knew what he was planning or she was imagining the same thing or something. And so this fateful day, so the legend has it anyway, she went downstairs, and as she was talking to him, suddenly Christ appeared next to him, just staring at her. And she was so transfixed by him that she didn't even pay any attention to this, because she just sat there staring. She didn't say a word. This went on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They thought maybe she'd had a stroke or something, and they just kind of brought her up to her room. But the way Master tells the story is that when this man came to her, Christ appeared next to him, and said, "Teresa," he said, I will introduce you to angels, not men." And then Master said, and Teresa quickly flies upstairs. She ran away in that version of the story. And then he said, it's God who tests us, and it's also God who saves us from the temptation, if we turn to Him. So let us take great heart that it's all a show. It's Divine Mother playing with us. And we're always safe. Even if we die, which sometimes seems like the worst outcome, so we come back. As Swami said, in terms of reincarnation, think about how many deaths you've survived already. Millions, billions. I had a dream once that a friend of mine betrayed me, and she actually, in this dream, she stabbed me through the heart. It was rather depressing. And I woke up very upset, actually, because it was sort of like I woke up in that moment and I still had those feelings from the dream. And I first felt, of course, I wasn't pleased about being murdered. But more than that, I felt that sense of betrayal. And more than even betrayal, it made me sort of become lack in self-confidence. Meaning, how could I have trusted a person who was so untrustworthy? How could I have thought that this person was my friend when all the time they were willing to kill me? And never mind the fact that they succeeded and that it also broke my heart. But how can I even see straight? Here I thought this was truth and it wasn't truth. So how do I know anything anymore? It was not a happy state of mind. And then I was walking around kind of still in a bad mood, and then I thought, well, I have to get through this because, after all, it was a dream, and you can't have a horrible day just because you had a bad dream. Come on. And so I said, Master, what can I do to heal this wound. And then the thought came to me, yes, she betrayed me and murdered me. And it wasn't Dharmini, just in case you're wondering, just to be absolutely clear, it was not her at all. Yes, this friend betrayed me and murdered me, and I'm still here. I live to tell about it. In fact, I'm upset that I was murdered. How can you be upset that you're murdered? Because you're still alive. You have to be alive to be upset, which means I'm alive. I'm right here. What's the big deal? Okay, one lifetime ended in an unpleasant way. Game over. Start again. Reboot. Here we are again. And hopefully wiser. And so it isn't that we become suspicious of everyone and say, oh, I don't know if you're a true friend. Do you have a knife in there? It's not like that. But from every test, from every disappointment, we can get a great lesson. So this is how the light comes into our lives and removes all the darkness. So many blessings to you during this holy season.
I wanted to just mention about the Ramayana. And when I first came on the spiritual path, it was one of the first Eastern books I had read. That, the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata. And what's wonderful is the first version of the Ramayana I read was Raja Gopalacharan, is that his name? From Madras, from Chennai. So isn't that interesting? And, it's easy to think I live in India, I study these scriptures, and it's an Indian thing. But that book, the Raja Gopalacharan, and also so many other versions, millions and millions of versions of those books have been read throughout the world. We know thousands of people who love the Ramayana, and they're not Indians. And so just to put it in a broader context, and the Ramayana as well as Mahabharata and all these stories, they're so beautiful just in stories as themselves. When I first read Ramayana, I thought, this is where the concept of Superman comes in. I mean, Hanuman is leaping from Sri Lanka and back and forth and, doing all these great feats. I thought, this is where that whole myth, in the West, it's a myth. Here we know it's reality. Saints really do these things. But this is where that desire to be Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever those, types of superheroes come from. It was just, wow, this is where it came from. But these stories are so exciting and so adventurous, they draw us in. And so at first we're attracted to the story. Then we realize, there's deep spiritual meaning in each of these stories. And the yogi circles around the spine and realizes that each story, each minute detail, explains how to go into the spine. So even though we have these stories, for instance, Ravana, 10 heads, how many yamas and niyamas are there? And so we have Ravana, the dragon. What is the dragon? Kundalini. And so we can slay the Kundalini by slaying each head of a yama or a niyama. This is what we're taught. Patanjali taught us this. And so we slay each head. I was thinking next year when we have Navratri, let's do our little yogi thing with it also. Let's have each day represent a yama and a niyama that we focus on, and together every day all of us can focus on a yama or niyama for that day and imagine ourselves slaying that head of Ravana to help us finally slay that Kundalini, which we do through Kriya Yoga. And so the meanings of these stories go deep, 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 until finally we get to how do we find self-realization? How do we merge with God? And that story just takes us in further and further. Those of you who have been coming to the Gita class with Dharmarajan, are seeing also the Bhagavad Gita being sifted into its jewels of self-realization, and how we can just take each little symbol as not just Krishna being shot through the ankle with an arrow, or these small little meanings that just mean so much, or the odd ending of the Ramayana with Sita having to have her spiritual lesson in such a strange way. And so they're not just these, but wait a minute, the wife means more than that. It's, we all have our lessons that we have to learn. And so we can take each life, we can learn from their lessons, and then each symbol helps us learn about how we can get more and more into our own spine and have more and more control over our own kundalini, and to understand truly how the spiritual path is only 3 feet long from the base of the spine to here. And so, but yet when we meditate, it's an infinite world inside, isn't it? It's infinite inside. And so we have our big world out here that can also be infinite, and in astrology there's Rahu. He's the head of the dragon. Rahu is unsatisfied by anything. Rahu will go out and out and out and eat and eat and eat, never to be drawn inward. Then we have Ketu, the tail of the dragon. Ketu says, come back. Ketu is that balance. Ketu says, meditate, go inward. There's a lot of other meanings for it, but Rahu, when we feel ourselves desiring, desires never quench themselves. They desire and desire and desire. It's like the mind. The mind will think and doubt and doubt and doubt and doubt, and it can never cure doubt. Only going inward snips the heads off of Ravana's heads and brings us back to center. We can endlessly think, endlessly doubt, endlessly just try to get the answers outside of ourselves. But as soon as we meditate, we see how we then find that inner world. So anyway, happy Dasara tomorrow, and happy all your mechanical and our mechanical things. May they all be reset, and happy for the next year. And next year, we'll practice a Patanjali Navaratri together and go deeper in it in that way. God bless you.